that feeling when the power goes out. The sudden silence, the abrupt darkness. The hum of the fridge disappears, the Wi-Fi light blinks out, and the world just stops. We're used to it. We find candles, we wait for the familiar flicker of lights returning. But what if, in that total, absolute blackout, something turned on? Power outages aren't just an inconvenience, they fundamentally change the feel of a home. The familiar background noises of our lives vanish. The digital clocks go blank. Time itself seems to slow down, stretching into the quiet dark. In places like the United States, outages are a common part of life, usually thanks to storms, scheduled maintenance, or equipment failures. We're so accustomed to them that we have a routine. That is what makes this story so chilling. It takes the familiar scenario and twists it into something deeply unsettling. The man in this account lived a quiet life, alone in a small apartment complex. The building was old, but the wiring had been recently updated, so he knew his way around the electrical system. He could tell the difference between a trip breaker in his own unit and a full-scale blackout, affecting the whole block. One night, it happened. Power cut out instantly. No warning, no flickering, just gone. The lights died. The air conditioner wound down into silence. His phone, which he had been scrolling through, automatically switched over to its cellular data. He walked over to the window and looked out. One by one, the street lights were dark. It wasn't just him, it was a full blackout. Just to be sure, he made his way to the breaker panel using his phone's flashlight to see. He checked every switch. Everything was still in the on position. The problem wasn't inside his apartment, it was everywhere. Resigned, he went back to the living room and sat down on the couch, letting his eyes slowly adjust to the deep darkness. The only light in the entire room came from the small screen of his phone. And then it happened. The television turned on. It didn't flicker or flash like it was getting a surge of residual power. It powered up smoothly, gracefully, as if the electricity was flowing perfectly normally. The screen glowed a vacant, dull blue, casting eerie shadows across the living room walls. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest. TV was plugged into the very same outlet strip as a lamp that was now completely dead. There was no battery backup. The building had no generator. How was this possible? On the screen, static fizzed for a moment, then it switched to a familiar menu. The words "not connected" appeared, followed by nitrogen monoxide signal. He slowly got to his feet, trying not to make any sudden moves, as if he might startle whatever was happening. He reached out and touched the frame of the television. It was warm. Not hot, just warm. Warm enough to suggest it hadn't just turned on, but had been on for a little while. His first instinct was to kill the power at the source. He reached behind the TV and yanked the plug out of the outlet strip. The screen stayed on. The blue light didn't even flicker. Instead, the message on the screen changed. Now it read, "Searching." Just then, his phone buzzed in his hand. It was a weather alert from the local utility company, officially confirming a widespread power outage in his area. He backed away from the TV, his mind racing, trying to find a logical explanation. Tech experts might say that some electronics, especially older models, can retain a residual charge for a few seconds after losing power. This can cause a brief flicker, a final gasp of light. But that doesn't account for minutes of sustained operation. It doesn't account for a TV that stays on after being completely unplugged. He just stood there and waited, watching the screen. The TV remained on, its blue glow filling the silent room. To what felt like an eternity, the static on the screen cleared. An image began to form. It wasn't a TV channel. It wasn't a DVD menu. It looked like a video feed. It was grainy with a slight, almost imperceptible delay. He recognized the view instantly. It was his own living room, and the feed was coming from a high corner of the room near the ceiling. It was an angle that matched no camera he had ever installed or even owned. The image on the screen showed him standing there in front of the TV, frozen in place, staring at his own reflection in the dark glass. The feed had a strange lag. He cautiously raised his hand, and a few seconds later, the figure on the screen did the same. Panic began to set in. He grabbed a heavy blanket from the back of the couch and threw it over the television, trying to smother the light. But the eerie blue glow bled right through the fabric, creating a shifting, ghostly presence in the middle of his living room. And then he heard it, a faint sound coming from behind the blanket. It was the sound of breathing, not his own. It wasn't loud or labored, just just a steady, quiet, rhythmic breath dot present. He stumbled backward, grabbing the power cord that was still attached to the TV and yanking it out of the back of the set itself. He threw the cord across the room. The TV stayed on. The image behind the blanket shifted. Camera angle seemed to change. It was lower now, closer. The sound of breathing stopped. New text appeared on the screen, its light filtering through the blanket. Signal found. That was it. He grabbed his keys and his phone and ran out of the apartment, not bothering to close the door properly. Outside, the blackout was still in full effect. His neighbors were milling around in the hallways and the parking lot, their faces lit by their phone screens. They were confused but calm. He asked a few of them if they'd experienced anything strange. One else mentioned the television turning on by itself. After nearly an hour, the power grid came back to life. Streetlights flickered on, and a collective sigh of relief went through the small crowd. He cautiously made his way back to his apartment. When he stepped inside, the TV was off. The room was dark and silent. The screen was cold to the touch. Power cord he had thrown lay on the floor across the room. The blanket he had used to cover the screen was folded neatly on the arm of the couch. In the days and weeks that followed, he desperately searched for logical explanations. He researched his TV model online. Sure, some smart TVs can be woken from standby mode by a network signal. Corrupted firmware can cause strange glitches. These explanations exist, but they didn't fit. His internet was down and the TV was unplugged. Most telling of all, during subsequent power outages, his television never turned on by itself again. Weeks later, driven by a lingering sense of unease, he stumbled upon a hidden service menu for his TV, the kind of diagnostic tool meant only for technicians. He navigated through obscure settings until he found the system logs, and there he found an entry from the night of the blackout. It read, input source, internal camera, status, active, duration, 18 minutes. His television model did not have a built-in camera. He disconnected it from the wall permanently that day and put it in a closet. When he eventually moved out, the new tenant who moved in reported no strange issues with the apartment or any of the appliances. But the story lingers because it touches on a very modern fear. A screen is supposed to be a window to the outside world. We use it to watch movies, to see the news, to connect with people far away. But what happens when that screen starts showing us ourselves? Without power, without permission, and without any logical explanation. It leaves you with one quiet, terrifying question: if the TV didn't need electricity, what exactly was turning it on? Thanks for watching. If you have a story that defies explanation, share it in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more strange and unsettling stories. Stay safe out there.